Political persecution. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg is suing Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan to stop him from any congressional oversight from the House Judiciary Committee that many of his political opponents are calling a witch hunt against President Trump. That is, Bragg's political opponents. Now, the lawsuit seeks to block a subpoena by House Republicans for former Manhattan prosecutor Mark Pomerantz. Bragg is also trying to stop the transfer of confidential document and testimony from the DA's office to Congress. And here to weigh in on the drama is California Congressman and member of the House Judiciary Committee, Kevin Kiley. Congressman Kiley, thanks for being here tonight. I want to get your reaction to this back and forth between your committee and Jim Jordan, but also Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan DA.
Of course. Well, thanks for having me. And, we're actually going to be in Manhattan on Monday for a special field hearing of the House Judiciary Committee. Now, when it comes to the issue of jurisdiction, of course, when there's federal funding involved, we have not only a right, but a responsibility to oversee the use of that funding, to assure that it's being used in a manner that is consistent with its intended purpose. And so that's what Chair Jim Jordan is doing. That's what it's his responsibility and our responsibility as a committee to do. And as part of that, we're going to be shining a light on what exactly has been happening in Manhattan, and for that matter, in cities like my own state, San Francisco, LA, and many across this country, where you have these so-called progressive prosecutors who have been pushing politics-first agendas and have been utterly derelict in their responsibility to keep the folks that they represent safe. I mean, just look at Manhattan during Alvin Bragg's tenure. During his first year in office, 2022, you saw a 23% surge in major crimes. Rapes are up, felony assaults, robberies, burglaries, grand larcenies, auto thefts, transit crimes, all up with him as district attorney. And so that's the purpose of our hearing on Monday, is to show exactly what life has been like for people in his city while he has refused to do his job.
And Congressman, do you expect that Bragg will eventually come to Capitol Hill to testify? I know he's been pushing back on that request, but how do you see that all playing out down the road?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I think, as I said before, that he has a responsibility to answer the questions that are being asked and to present his testimony, since he is a recipient of federal funds. I mean, this isn't really even a question. And, if he feels that he's acting in a way that is consistent with the law, that is consistent with the purposes of that funding, that is consistent with the responsibilities of his office, then he really shouldn't have any qualms about answering any of these questions. But clearly that is not the case. And if you talk to, a typical person in Manhattan these days, they will tell you that. And it's a pattern we've seen, by the way, all across the country. In San Francisco, they recently recalled a district attorney in Alvin Bragg's mold overwhelmingly. This is in the most liberal city in America, but it's become borderline unlivable for a lot of people because crime has just gotten so out of control.
And it seems like the indictment against President Trump has really energized his base. Politico is reporting that he's raised $15.4 million since charges were filed. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, the problem with these prosecutors like Alvin Bragg or like Gascon in Los Angeles or many of these other so-called progressive prosecutors is there's a ton of funding on their side. And that is why I call it a politics first agenda, because they, get elected and then they institute policies that are just about following an agenda that is promoted by a very narrow band of radical activists who happen to have a lot of funding behind them. So, if there is, you just cited funding that's for a presidential campaign that stems, I guess, from some of all of this. But there needs to be attention on the funding equation on the other side, that it's because there's so much money behind these political so-called progressive prosecutors that we're seeing these just absolutely reckless policies implemented in major American cities with, the victims continuing to grow.
Yeah, good point there. And I also want to move on to this. Thanks to a Freedom of Information Act request made by the America First Legal Foundation, it appears the White House may have had something to do with the raid on Mar-a-Lago. Now, based on the documents they acquired, they say it appears that the Biden White House and DOJ coordinated to obtain the Trump records and create a pretext for the raid through a special access request. So, Congressman, if this is true, how problematic is it?
Well, I don't know the facts, but I think that certainly there are a lot of questions surrounding what happened there and what has happened in the current case. Whether, for example, the White House was involved in terms of not saying that we want this case to not move forward, which is what might be customary in a case where there are primarily issues of federal law involved. And so, I think that, and in the terms of the documents, the fact that now there's another special prosecutor that's having to look in to what happened with President Biden, that raises even more questions about why exactly this investigation was started and why that particularly, far-reaching and extreme action was taken. So that's just another, point of, I think, of doubt as to whether or not the principle of the rule of law and equal treatment under law is being followed by this administration.
California Congressman Kevin Kiley. Congressman, thank you for being here tonight.
You bet. Thanks.